BBC London on 94.9 FM.
On TV, on radio, online.
This is BBC London.
BBC London 94.9, it's 6 minutes past 8.
Do they have things like this in the States? I bet they don't, do they? Nothing of this kind of tension.
Nothing of this quality.
These are the important questions. Number one, when do they receive the application for extra funding? And number two, when will they get off their fat, lardy backsides and make a decision? Yeah?
Oh, there's clearly no coming together on this point.
Clearly none. Let's talk about art again then.
I had a girlfriend who'd previously been going out with Scott Walker, and so she had all his records, and I had to bloody hear them all day long when I was going out with her.
Plenty of goals, plenty of stories, plenty of drama up and down the country. It's been a busy old afternoon for London football, and you've been listening to it in just the right place. That's here on the BBC station for London, BBC London.
I've been listening for the last couple of hours, and you've converted me. What a terrific programme.
Converted you to what?
Well, to this station and this programme.
This is BBC London 94.9.
It's the biggest civil rights march in 150 years. It's being staged in London today, as you won't have failed to notice. It's how the organisers are describing today's Liberty and Livelihood March.
Now, we actually asked some Londoners what they thought about the march. Here's what they had to say.
I think people should have a voice and they should be heard, but I can't agree with just sport versus a poor animal. I just can't.
I do support the Alliance, but having said that, if I was brought up in a council house in Neasden and had to listen to some of these privileged people banging on about, it would upset me.
This is BBC London 94.9.
Over to Michael in Cricklewood. Michael.
Hello there, Ken.
Hi, Michael.
Hi. My question to you is fairly simple. The major thrust of your transport campaign is to take cars off the road. Without a shadow of a doubt, there's massive problems with the transport, particularly with the unions.
Well, I think that one of the reasons that I once wanted to appoint Bob Coyote to run the Underground was that whilst he ran the Underground in New York, and New York's transport unions make ours look like moderate conservatives, he managed to get through all his changes in how that would run without a single day's industrial action. I mean, I want to see the papers what was agreed last summer, because someone's broken their word.
This is BBC London 94.9.
Nearly 8 hours after the quake struck, and rescue teams have just reached Lewisham High Street. They've been greeted with scenes of devastation. This roof tile, shaken loose by the quake behind me, now lies shattered on the pavement. Many people spoke of almost spilling their tea when the quakes rocked the area. It's thought thousands of people haven't been injured at all. These local residents spoke of their terror when disaster struck.
It's one of them things, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, I was fast asleep. Land or not?
No, nothing at all, no. It's just dead asleep.
It was quite scary.
As the fear of aftershocks recedes, the community here, already poor, now face the daunting prospect of starting again. It may take them years to recover. Ben Wilkins, BBC London News in Lewisham.
On 94.9 FM, this is BBC London.
Get the latest travel info to get you back home on Tube Strike Day.
Reliable, regular and right up to date. On radio,
BBC London 94.9 bulletins every 15 minutes, at breakfast and drive time every 30 minutes during the day.
online,
www.bbc.co.uk/London. With a full text service and exclusive online access to 160 jam cams across London's hotspots.
very busy on the motorways this morning.
Traffic heavy on the M25 clockwise, just around
on South Central and Connect South.
BBC London Travel will get you back home on Tube Strike Day.
And as if you needed reminding, the latest tube strike starts tomorrow evening from 8. And BBC London 94.9 will have all the details you need to get to work and back on air and online at www.bbc.co.uk/London.
BBC London Breakfast with Danny Baker. Weekday mornings from 6.
All of a sudden, from under the bar, 6 or 7 fellas in dinner dress just come up and the drink's already there. And where did they come from? And there's a tunnel out of the orchestra pit. They looked at their things. Oh, I've got 20 minutes here. Down the little tunnel, into the pub, back down the tunnel, into the pit. And they carry on.
Danny Baker.
Amy's just dropped off. Amy, come on, Amy. We've only got a few more minutes, Amy.
BBC London Breakfast with Danny Baker. Weekday mornings from 6.
You know the problem with jazz musicians? They all suck.
Yeah, there is that.
Danny Baker's Breakfast Show on BBC London 94.9.
I just think they're being awkward.
Oh, well, my heart bleeds for you, Phil, that your drug addict wife has to walk to the chemist to get her methadone. I'm sure the whole of London want to organise a demonstration against this violation of her human rights. You're talk goodbye. I've heard some things. I've been in London for a year. I've heard some things, and that's the funniest thing I've heard. She's getting the methadone. She's getting the heroin substitute. They've taken her off the weekly prescription and she has to go up and collect it, and he's complaining. It'd be easier for her to score. No, it wouldn't. What has the world come to?
You're listening to BBC London 94.9. I'm Robert Elms and I'm talking to Brian Sewell. I think we'll have to agree to disagree here, because it seems to me that both regional accents and class accents are absolutely valid. You know, most of us, for example, I don't write in my accent.
That's what I'm pleading for.
No, but you're not.
I am.
You're suggesting that
be able to do both.
But you're suggesting that there is one spoken form of English which is the correct form, and all that is a random selection of one class form of English that you're attempting to freeze.
You keep on bringing the word class
because it's clearly. It's both a regional accent and it's a class accent. It's a Southern English upper class accent that you seem to think is the correct one.
Oh, there's clearly no coming together on this point.
Clearly none. Let's talk about art again then.
BBC London on 94.9 FM.
On TV, on radio, online.
This is BBC London.
With the 8 o'clock news, I'm Abby Lewis.
I'm Richard Foster. Good evening.
I'm Andrea Taylor.
Good morning, I'm Harriet Mitchell. And earthquakes hit many parts of the...
Right then, the first query of the morning concerned the Great Smog of 52. I wanted someone to ring me up who remembered it. I don't know if Vic does that, but I know he's on the line. Thanks very much for calling in, Vic.
My pleasure, Robert.
Right then, were you there?
So I was there indeed, sir.
Right.
I'm 66 now, so I was about 16 at the time.
What was it like? How long did it last, for example?
It lasted approximately 4 days at its worst.
So could you see at all?
Well, I'll tell you how bad it was. There was an old-time cab driver I knew called Joe. He got hopelessly lost one night. And he was so lost that in the end he saw a tram and he thought, well, if I can't do no bad, I'll follow the tram and I'm bound to wind up somewhere that I know. And he wound up in the tram park.
I grew up in Bermondsey and around the old Kent
course,
Road.
there'd have been a few
and at the
around
time,
there,
and at the
and
time,
New Cross, yeah,
but
right.
people used to say, you know, when you were in the full cover of Melody Maker Pomp in, say, 71, and people say, you know, the fella in Status Quo is one of the Ross's ice cream people, and because I couldn't imagine it. I said, we're talking about rock and roll here. I mean, just because it's got the same name outside the shop.
No, that was my family.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were all over the place.
Are they still in the ice cream business at all? Anyone?
Some of them are, yeah. I got a letter from somebody the other day that said that some uncle had died and they're just talking about ice cream. So
did you ever go out on the van, or was it just over the counter?
I was out with my dad quite a lot, and I used to make lollies and all that.
Where was the round?
Well, I'm not selling yet.
No, it was where Wharf Road, or was it
Bellingham Estate quite a lot? You know Bellingham.
I know Bellingham Estate.
And down Downham, all that stuff.
So do I.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, it's ice creams for favours, was it?
And then we did over at that's where I met Steve Marriott, and most of the small faces they used to know my dad, and I met them before.
Well, you met him.
Well, I met him serving them ice cream.
Did you really?
And then we did some shows with him later. I know you.
Yeah, still have at 99. That's Steve Marriott, didn't he?
Now, did you? And forgive me, if I know we've got bigger fish to fry, and the album Heavy Traffic, great reviews all over the place, and the re-evaluation underway and all of this. But did you? Was it your company that made these lollies like teddy bears? And as I remember, they were kind of pink and green.
I remember those.
On a stick, they were pink and green, and they were kind of creamy. Whatever lollies
You
are.
are
Creamy.
terrible. Yeah, we used to make those.
They were the tastiest.
Well, if I could tell you stories about how things were made, you would never eat them, so I'm not going there.
People always used to say that. We had a friend of mine, his dad was the toffee apple man. He makes them in the toilet, everyone used to say. Why would you make them in the toilet? The bother of doing the toilet up for toffee apples.
Because it's cheaper to rent a toilet than it's a factory.
I suppose so.
What would the BBC London pie be? Now, if you're a regular listener, I mean, you know, Danny Baker, Gaunty, you've got Robert Elms, you've got Lisa Anson, you've got Gary Crowley, loads of the regulars. What do you think would go into the pie for the BBC London pie? Loads of calls. Thanks ever so much to the number here, 020 722 42000. Tom from Chinkford, good evening.
It's good to get the cheese.
Hello. Tom, what do you think would go into the BBC London pie?
Will it be a fruit pie? And I'd start off with waffle for Danny Baker. Some Gaunty would have some lemon in it with sharpness.
Right, so waffle for Danny, yep.
Lemon for Gaunty.
Lemon for Gaunty, yep.
Maybe fruit for Robert to make it interesting.
What fruit?
Kiwi.
Kiwi, because he's an interesting guy, isn't he?
Yeah, and then we'd have tropical for Lisa, some tropical fruits in there for Lisa.
Yep.
A bit of nutmeg for Henry.
Nutmeg for Henry.
Tom Watts can have the oranges for half time in there. And we'll finish off with the cream for you, Sadie.
Oh.
It goes like this. Your time starts now. Which 16th fashion designer opened the first boutique on the King's Road?
Mary Quant.
Mary Quant is the correct answer. What is the smallest police station in London?
Oh, God, it's that one in the Marble Arch.
Marble Arch is the correct answer.
Yeah.
How much is a single tube ticket from Zone 3 to Zone 1?
Zone 1. £2.70.
It's £1.90. Stop the clock. Ooh. You got 2 out of 3, and it took you...
23.73 seconds.
23.73 seconds. Hang on just where you are, OK, Maria?
OK.
Wilma, you there?
Yes, just about.
OK, Wilma, that's what you're up against. 2 out of 3 in 3.7. Have you measured 0.73?
Wait, no, is this the playoffs here?
It don't exist.
It's very important. It's a precise science.
All right, fine. 23.73 of a second.
Like building confidence in it.
This is BBC London 94.9.
Think you know London? Think again. Your city, your stories, like you've never seen them before. Inside Out, with me, Sumit Bose, continues tonight at 7:30, BBC One.
Look at the art, don't you think it's beautiful?
One of London's top chefs reckons our streets are paved with...
Oh my God!
Salad.
Wild rocket, right outside at a supermarket!
And it's very tasty. Join me, Sumit Bose, to find out more about this and other stories, all on the new programme about London. Inside Out. Continues tonight at 7:30 on BBC One.
BBC London's Inside Out tonight covered exotic pets in their programme on BBC One. But this is your chance to have your say. So if you've seen the show especially and want to make a comment, give us a buzz. 020 722 42000.
Oh, I'm down, Benjamin.
I was just sort of, interested to kind of sort of know who, were the people that inspired you to want to do what you do. I mean, were there kind of sort of, certain people that...
What kind of people absolutely. I mean, I think in their very different ways, 3 of my favourites were Little Richard, I think, ultimately was the first rock person that I thought, I want to do this. I want to do what he's doing. Actually, I didn't think that. I thought, I want to be the sax player in his band. That's what I thought. I thought, when I grow up, and I was like 9 years old, I first saw him. I think my mother took me to see Disc Jockey Jamboree, and he was doing a song in that. It might have been She's Got It, actually, I think. And it had like this 6-piece sax lineup behind him in white suits, kind of doing the footsteps thing, a bit like the Shadows, And I thought, I want to be that. I want to be, a 6'2" black guy playing the saxophone in a white suit.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. When I say get down, you get down. You don't ask questions. When I say we're stopping to eat, you stay with me. You listen to me from now on.
Now, Sam Mendes is the wunderkind who transformed the fortunes of the Donmar Warehouse Theatre with arresting productions and inspired castings such as Nicole Kidman in The Blue Room. His first feature film, American Beauty, instantly placed him as a major directing force in Hollywood. Spielberg offered him a full-time gig at DreamWorks, but he turned it down. They have worked together, though, on the new Mendes picture, The Road to Perdition. I caught up with Sam Mendes earlier this week, and I put it to him that there's so much water in this film, in the storm scenes, that as a man who'd struggled with tiny budgets for a small fringe theatre, if he was going to have a storm scene, he was going to have a storm scene.
I think there's definitely an element of truth there. I think there is something about, after struggling with, you can't even have, 2 sticks of furniture without cutting something at the Donmar. Being able to expand and paint on a huge canvas was one of the reasons that I did it, in a way. One of the reasons I did the movie, and the sheer joy of being able to work in period. But of course, the problem is that with bigger budgets and bigger demands, it actually gets more difficult, not easier. You think, when you've got the money to be able to afford it. But of course, there's a whole other set of technical problems, and one of them was we needed a lot of rain in the movie. Although the feeling of it raining is actually something that comes from only 2 10-minute sequences of rain. Although people go, it rains for 70% of the movie, and it actually doesn't. but it's just that two of the key sequences are in the rain.
So Norman, you're about to make a film, aren't you? I mean, there's something in the pipeline. Are you allowed to?
Yeah, I'm reckoning
it?
to do. I haven't done the contract yet, but I'm reckoning to do a film in the autumn, in a few weeks from now, and then Adam and Evil
next spring.
In the spring.
And what will you play in that? Can you say? Can you talk about your character?
Yeah, it's a story of a bloke who's getting on in years, like I am, and he's never had a lady friend all his life.
Unlike you.
So good.
Very good.
I've written a couple of songs for it. When I create her, well, because I write music, don't you?
Yeah.
When I create her, and she's looking at me, and I say, "Can you speak?" And she says, I say, well, would you like to be loved? And she looks at me and she says, love. And I sing, I've hoped and prayed there would come a day when I'd find someone to love me. Although I'm shy, I would always try, but they'd only laugh and then snub me. But I've still tried, and sometimes I've cried, 'cause I've had no luck whatsoever. Now the Lord up above has found me someone to love, and I know He knows that I'll be grateful forever.
BBC London 94.9, it's 6:05.
Good evening, welcome to the Friday Football Club. Membership's free for football fans. All you have to do is listen to BBC London 94.9 every Friday, dial us up on 020 722 42000 and take part in football chat. Coming up tonight, scoring Arsenal on the brink of a record-equalling net-busting feat and still rolling along with winning ways.
Vieira plays it forward, 18 yards from goal is Bergkamp, pulls it back again for Henry! Oh, what a fantastic finish!
Sticking with Chelsea, it's been a funny old weekend as well. The Chelsea glory days of the early 70s are apparently a myth. That's according to Blues chairman Ken Bates. In an extraordinary outburst, I have to call it an outburst, don't I? This weekend, Bates said, and this is a quote, "What did the likes of Peter Osgood and Alan Hudson actually achieve for this club? Between them, they won 2 cups. It was nothing." Well, no one better to answer these questions than striker Peter Osgood. He was a Chelsea legend and the man who led the line for the team now being maligned by Ken Bates. Peter, did you really call him a prat over the weekend, has been reported?
I certainly did. We had a chairman called Noilly Pratt in the 60s and 70s, and I thought we'd found his long-lost son, to be honest. I mean, it's such a statement, especially this time when we're mourning our great pal Ian Hutchinson.
We'll come on to that because that really was just disastrous timing, wasn't it?
I just don't know what the man's up to, why he has to say it.
Plenty of goals, plenty of stories, plenty of drama up and down the country. It's been a busy old afternoon for London football, and you've been listening to it in just the right place. That's here on the BBC station for London, BBC London 94.9.
Palace attacking, Hayden Mullins feeds into Dougie Freedman, one-on-one with the keeper. Mullins turns it into the back of the net after it was flicked back into his path by Dougie Freedman, and all of a sudden the Watford defence fell apart and Palace walked through them. Watford 0, Crystal Palace 1. Danger here for Crystal Palace. Ardley as he strikes it right foot. And it's into the back of the net from Neil Ardley over the top of the ball. Kalinko chased across his goal, but he couldn't get to it. And all of a sudden, Watford back into it. Watford 1, Crystal Palace 1. Danny Webber in the penalty area over the right-hand side. Webber to Doyley. Doyley with a right foot across to Nielsen. Nielsen goes overhead. It drops for Hyde. Hyde turns it into the back of the net. And Watford have the lead. The acrobatics from Nielsen. It broke to the path of Micah Hyde. And Hyde turned it into the back of the net. Watford 2, Crystal Palace 1. To be taken by Butterfield. He'll swing it in right-footed, drops it into the penalty area, into the 6-yard box, and it's nodded into the back of the net by Danny Granville. 3 players went for the ball. Alex Chamberlain feels he was impeded, and Danny Granville, stumbling to his knees, knocked the ball into the back of the net with his head, and it's now Watford 2, Crystal Palace 2. Dwalin and Johnson goes up for it. He could drop for Mullins. Mullins right-footed, and into the back of the net, and loads of space for Hayden Mullins as he charged in there. The ball dropped at his feet, and he drilled it home along the ground and beat Alex Chamberlain. It's Watford 2, Crystal Palace 3. Twisting away from a challenge though and going back again, a left-footed cross in, and that's into the back of the net. It's headed home from close range by Hyder Helderson. Webber caused all the problems, and clearly the defending has not been sorted out. Incredibly enough, it's Watford 3, Crystal Palace 3.
BBC London 94.9, it's 6 minutes past 8.
The theme to Gary show, the theme to Gary show. Gary called me up and asked if I would write his theme song. I'm almost halfway finished. How do you like it so far? How do you like the theme to Gary show?
It's Gary Crowley feeding your ears for the next 2 hours, and coming up between now and 10 o'clock, new releases on the way from the likes of Sandra Lurch, Beck, Mark Carroll, and also the Apples in Stereo, to name but four. And in the second hour of the programme, at around about 9:30, it's in the shops on Monday. It's the 6th solo album from Paul Weller. It's entitled Illumination and includes the current smash, It's Written in the Stars.
Music on BBC London
94.9. It's Saturday night. I'm Charlie Gillett. You're listening to BBC London 94.9.
Charlie Gillett with studio guests and live music from around the world.
The specials track was from Stereotypical A-sides, B-sides and rarities.
Specialist Music Award winner Charlie Gillett.
Tanya Tagak from the very, very far north of Canada. And what an amazing sound that is. That was Mark Flanagan. Before that, Swad Massey, a track we haven't played before from her album, Kasara Alik.
Charlie Gillett.
Well, don't you want to see the person who sounds like that?
Music, 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 music.
Saturday nights from 8 on BBC London 94.9.
Good evening and welcome. It's Rhythm and Blues on BBC London 94.9 FM. Maximum respect to Charlie Gillett for another powerhouse of sound. He'll be back with more next week at 8 o'clock. From now till midnight, it's me, the rank MSP, with the very best in reggae and soul.
And for those of you in the know, yes, I've been round my mum's. And you know what that means. Dug out some absolute murderous classics, which I'm going to rinse out right here, right now, on Giant 45, here on BBC London on 94.9.
The most distinctive mix of news and entertainment in the city.
If the countryside dwellers were any other ethnic minority, they would be supported by this government. That's an insult to black and gay people, isn't it? You know.
This is BBC London.
This is the best place to be, I tell you. We're right at the Duke of Norfolk pub, and I tell you, as the circus systems go by, it is fantastic.
It's basically, essentially, to talk about the basic truths of the universe. Okay. Good. Following so far.
One question we always ask whenever Hollywood stars come over is, did you ever take anything from the set?
You got me, Bill, all right. All of London's top news stories, as well as the headlines, you'll hear it here on 94.9.
The most distinctive mix of news and entertainment in the city.
This is BBC London.